What's up, everyone? You know what night it is. Wednesday night, off-centered with Dustin, the personal finance dad. I actually said his name right this time. We also have a special mystery guest, someone that I've not brought on this show before, but you probably know him. You probably like him a lot because he has a lot of great insight, great entertainment value as well, and we'll bring him on in just a couple minutes. Now, before we dive into the live stream, two things. Number one, if you don't know who Jimmy Rex is part owner of the Salt Lake City Cards and Coffee. I met him at the National. He is a phenomenal dude, very successful businessman and real estate investor. He's also an author of this book, You End Up Where You're Heading. I read it in 3 days flat. And with the new year turning around and all of us having, right around the corner, and a lot of us having goals and wanting to improve our quality of life, sometimes you just need a little motivation, some inspiration, and just a good voice in your ear. So definitely check out this book on Amazon. Worth this $16 investment, I guarantee it. Also, he has a great podcast, The Jimmy Rex Show. But check him out on Instagram. Phenomenal dude. And again, part owner of Cards and Coffee in Salt Lake City. Would love to have him on the show in the near future. Second of all, looking for a paid intern in Southern California. For a big media project that is coming up. So they have to be good at video and editing, as well as living in Southern California. If you or anyone you know fits this and might be interested, this is a paid internship. It's like a paid job. Have them send their resume to thecomebackcardinvestor@gmail.com. Attach the resume, and then also subject, do like sports card job as a subject. But I would love to get that out because it's going to be a great opportunity for someone. So with that being said, welcome back. Now let's get to work. Let's bring on the non-mystery guest.
I'm just thinking about, man, the dating life must be really struggling when you're hiring an intern, and it must be a female. It must be a beautiful female in LA.
Well,
my dating life is going great.
Okay, well, I will say this. The other stipulation or requirement or whatever is that they're a card fan. They love sports cards. So that kind of cuts out like 99.999% of females in the world.
Yeah, you've got that one girl that was on.
Yeah, and she moved to Texas.
After that show, she's like, I'm out.
And trust me, she doesn't need an internship. She's doing quite well. Her and her husband actually invited me to a Chargers game, and they had a suite. So I got to go to SoFi Stadium.
Oh, it was them.
It was them. So it was really cool. They moved to Austin. So that was Sherry and her husband, Ivan. But seriously, if anyone knows someone that would qualify, this is a paid job. I will not be paying them, but the person I'm working with will be, and it'll be a project I'm involved in. So I'd love to have it. And here it is scrolling on the bottom. I'll keep that up there, but would love to have someone. Dustin, I was going to ask how are you doing, but let's say hi to some people first. What's up, Brian? Good to see you, man. I have not heard of this. Maybe we could talk about this. Pigs 76. Steve Aoki is pumping MetaZoo with Jeff right now. It just announced a Walmart deal. All right. Have you heard of that?
I'm going to be a lame-o. I have no idea what MetaZoo is. I know it's some sort of a card game. It's something like Magic the Gathering, I believe, right? Or something. I don't know.
I'm looking at like these made-up creatures, and it's like, look, after Pokemon and I guess Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like you can't just make up all these creatures and get away with it. I just don't get it. It's not for me. Good to see you, Mike C. That does make sense. I know that Mark Movers is going to have a lot of other things besides sports cards. They're just really focusing on sports cards now. But I believe Pokemon, NFTs perhaps. So it's going to be a very big tool. Good to see you, Ryan. Man, no clue about baseball. No clue. Dustin, you're no help either.
Yeah, and Ryan, this is like the last question I thought you would ask as far as like a modern player goes, because Ryan's literally like buying, vintage, ultra vintage stuff.
That would be great, Troy. Maybe in a couple 100,000 more followers, we'll land Steve Aoki.
Yeah,
that's.
Darn! The mystery guest couldn't make it. It was Steve Aoki.
What's up, Shane? Good to see you as well. base card collector. Good to see you as well. That's a sweet card in your profile there. Eric Uchimura, aloha as well. I love that, man. I wish I was in Hawaii right now. LT, good to see you as well, bro. People calling out. I don't even know what this is. I've been out of sync. I've been out of like the loop for so long. I don't know what they're calling them out. Is it the MetaZoo thing? Yeah, let us know what this is, just because I have no idea what this is regarding. And maybe our guest will know as well. All right. Well, let me talk to you for a second. Dustin, what's up, man? How's your week?
I just walked in the door from a high school varsity basketball game with my oldest son and my daughter.
You're dressed like it.
Yeah. I've got my it's my goat sweatshirt with the Breeze number 9 on it.
That's not a goat.
It's a Saints goat. It's a Saints goat. Look, I recognize that Tom Brady's the goat, but for the New Orleans Saints, Breeze is the best Saint that we've ever had.
There you go. And he's a great role model overall. And he was a Sigma Chi. He was in my fraternity, just at a different college. So him and Sean Payton, actually. I
saw a meme that was hilarious. And I don't have any proof of it, but basically it was like Drew Brees' hairline is the comeback player of the year because it looks like he got some help up top, but who knows? Like maybe he's just got a different hairstyle going on. But I thought that was kind of funny.
I'm sure he's not nearly as stressed. I mean, it's like, he's not running from 300-pound linemen and then having to worry about throwing the ball 15 yards down the field, which is 6 yards beyond his range. So
true that.
I don't know. I haven't heard about that at all. So no clue. That's interesting. I mean, I think anyone can get called out, but the question is like, is it valid and what's behind it? So anyway, definitely the Lamb. Let's bring on our guest because I think you're out of talking points, Dustin. So without further ado, Neo.
What a great host, Brad.
What's up, boys?
Brad, no more talking points. Next guest, Neo, you better have something good or we're going to the next guest.
I thought Steve Aoki was right behind me.
Yes. He had to reschedule for next week, unfortunately. So what's up, man? You haven't been on the show. I haven't invited you, to be fair, until recently, but I've been meaning to ever since we met at the National. You're a really good dude, very knowledgeable as well, and you offer a lot of value to your audience, which I'm sure a lot of people here watching are part of your audience as well. So welcome to the show. How are you doing, and what's up in your world?
I'm doing pretty good. Nothing crazy going on. I got the Cavs game on over here. They're actually like a good basketball team again now. It's like kind of weird, making up for the fact that the Browns suck. But yeah, nothing too crazy. You're cranking out the content.
So like you were talking about your focus earlier, because I haven't delved into any other collectibles per se, but you're not just a sports card guy. What other collectibles do you like focusing on?
I do a lot, not a lot, but I do. I move in and out of the world of comic books as well. That's probably my more PC / collector long-term hold side of things, with the ultra modern sports cards being like, the action quick flip, making deals side of things.
What's interesting is that like with sports cards, the way it's been over the last 6-7 months, I feel like non-sports cards, vintage, other collectibles are starting to get more popular, maybe just by default, because with the pop reports, with everything else coming, with like the market not even resembling what it did back in March, it seems like other areas are starting to, I don't know if it's pick up traction or people are just starting to wander off into like other realms. Is that fair to say?
I mean, the non-sports card, like Marvel cards and stuff, shot up around the same time when the NBA market went bonkers in February. Like that was when the Marvel stuff really took off. That was kind of like wave one. Now you're seeing a lot of hype on the PMG side of things, jambalayas, that sort of stuff. I saw Charles Fuchs is in chat. He's huge on the PMG train. And then the comic book market kind of followed a similar path, but it lagged behind like 2 months behind sports cards. Like sports cards peaked in February, March. A lot of the comic book market peaked in like April and May. And then since some of that stuff was pulled back as well, not as hard as some of the sports card stuff has, but it's definitely lower than what it was 6 months ago. For me, it's a nice change of pace. If I don't want to say sports cards gets boring, but the repetition of it all, to be able to mix that up with diving into either Marvel cards or comic books or whatever, to filter into that for a couple weeks and then kind of like reset myself and then kind of move back into sports cards just kind of helps keep me sane, I guess.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I think to myself, man, there's only a couple athletes I really like, I really believe in. Most athletes that are active, it's too high risk. Besides Tom Brady, the active goats, like LeBron and others, where you'll be good long term. But most other players, the new young guys, it would be fun, except their cards might be really expensive, or you just you buy a card that's graded and then you realize that there's going to be 2 times the amount of that card in existence in a year's time. So even if you buy at a good price, you might be overpaying by default. And I think that's something that's a bit, a bit lousy. But then you're also a fan of like, hey, I like X-Men. I love Wolverine. I love those movies. I love all that kind of stuff. What else can it be? So even myself, I'm like, vintage doesn't really interest me. Active players, especially NBA, I don't really care because NBA season, I just don't. My Orlando Magic aren't going to be relevant for a long time. So I'm just going to kind of stick to Tampa Bay Lightning, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But what else is there that's also going to bring excitement? And, what's funny is like the one thing I keep turning to, like I mentioned before, are celebrity cards where I would love to see more and more of them. And I'm starting to do a little bit of research as to what's out there because there are some pretty cool cards from the mid 2000s and a couple of years ago of celebrities. And I'm like, hey, an actor can have a great 20, 30-year career and entertain you far more than the majority of athletes out there.
Yeah, I see they just came out with that. What was that, Leaf Pop Century or whatever? Just came out like a week or two ago. That's like loaded up with celebrity autos.
Yeah. Well, I think Leaf is the only one, correct?
Yeah, Leaf does.
Well, Allen and Ginter has some of that stuff mixed in.
Yeah, I don't know if people respect Allen and Ginter nearly as much, but Leaf I saw actually make some decent products. I would love for them to be really expanding that next year because, like, you were mentioning with comics, if it's rumored that someone is going to play a superhero and it's a big star, then that comic book might really go up in value, like because it could be hyped as a really big movie because it's a huge movie star. However, the movie star might not have a card, and maybe living here in LA and just being a bit more biased towards the entertainment industry because I'm surrounded by it, I would love to get those actors and actresses, especially if you get an auto or you get a piece of their like movie worn outfit or whatever it is, autographed. I think that'd be amazing. Dustin,
there are some.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are some Marvel
I'll
cards.
just remove you now.
There are some Marvel cards that actually have relics, and it's kind of like modern sports cards. They'll say on the back, worn in the movie. So like it's actually a piece of the suit that the actor wore in the movie. But then you got to be careful because there's other versions of those cards that'll just say used in the production of, which means like a stunt double could have wore it or it was like a backup suit. So it's kind of like the game used versus player worn thing on the sports card side of things. But Marvel does have those. You could actually get little chunks of like Robert Downey Jr.'s suit that was used in like the production of or that he wore in Iron Man 2.
I mean, that's cool. The ones I saw, there was one that was like Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey. There's 4 comedians or something on one card, but the card was hideous. There was not pictures of them. It was just 4 tiny little squares, and you don't know what outfit it was. And I wasn't sure if it was worn by them, but like, you'd want to say like, okay, this is part of Will Ferrell's sweater in Step Brothers. That would be huge. That would be cool because I could literally look at that and be like, oh, and that emotion of watching the movie would come to me. But anyway, maybe we'll see if Leaf can extend it. Maybe it'll be more popular in the future. I'd love to see it happen, but who knows?
I've seen cards like from the Sandlot that have like the actor autos on them with like from that, or like from Major League as well, like tying in the sports and the movie side of things.
I got
But
you. Yeah.
yeah, I think a big draw to comic books, and Neo actually has a couple of books that are awesome that I'm going to speak to. But you can get a monster book for, thank you, Brian. You can get a monster book for $5,000. You can get a big time key comic book that's in pretty good condition for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Whereas on the sports card side, you're just kind of scratching the surface of big cards for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. But on the comic book side, you can really get some pretty epic stuff. I mean, I know that's a lot of money still, $5,000, but even $1,000 or kind of, however you're spending. But I think that's a draw too, because with sports cards, hell, there's a 6-figure Zion card and the guy's played like one season, I mean, it's like,
I mean, for sure, it's silly. And I saw, I was looking at, I did my newsletter. Shout out to David Hunter, which, he does my newsletter. I basically just send it out and add a title to it. But I'll put the banner here at the bottom. If you want some card insight from someone that's even smarter than me, which is most people, David Hunter puts together my newsletter, and you could sign up there at thecomebackcardinvestor.com. Most of the time, it's telling you what's overpriced and what not to buy versus telling you what to buy, because it shows, like, I basically share what cards have gone down, and of course it's all like every Porter Junior, every Porter there is in the NBA has gone down, and rookies. And the one rookie I saw, Mac Jones, someone paid like $3,000 for Mac Jones PSA 10 Donruss base. Like,
was that ever found out to be real or not? Because it just seems like it's bogus. It doesn't make any sense.
Maybe it is, but then there were a couple sales just below it that went down to 26, 22. And so at least one of them you would imagine is real. But I'm like, this is Donruss base of a quarterback who's played what, like 10 games so far, 11, 12 games, whatever. We've had 12 in the season so far. Patriots, they're looking really good right now. The defense is looking really good. But it's not like, I mean, he threw 2 passes the other night, and you're talking about $3,000 or even $2,000 for a PSA 10 Donruss base. Like, I don't know. I see that and I go, like, we got to point that out. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's got to be something weird going on the back end there. Someone's, I don't know, filtering money in or something, possibly. I don't know, washing money or whatever. And I don't know. I'm speculating, but it just seems really, really odd.
Yeah, there were multiple sales of that card because I did a video about that, and I kind of looked at some of them it's hard to tell. Some of them look legit shilled, but some of them look like legit buyers as well. So I'm sure it's probably like, I think Brad said, like a handful of them sold at like 2K plus. So I'm sure some of those were fake, and I'm sure some of those were real, like 100%.
And AIH Sports, I actually did look up Joe Rogan cards, and I like him, to be honest. I like Joe Rogan. I like where he's going. And the thing is, I saw his first year card. I forgot what it is, if it's Topps Chrome or what. And it was actually really expensive. And I also figured that a lot of those cards are in grading right now. And so I'd let it pass. But I saw like a second year numbered card for like $15. And that's the kind of stuff I'd be like, I could just look at it and enjoy it for $15.
You know what was a badass card was Vegas Finds Chris. He pinged me, sent me a message, and he got one of those 1940 Superman cards, like number 1, like the first Superman card from 1940. I don't know how much he got for it. And it wasn't like, it doesn't even matter the grade, like even if it's a 2 or a 3 or whatever, because they're just very difficult to find. But I was like, damn, that would be a cool thing to own. So I've added that to kind of the long-term want list. But that was one that wasn't really on the radar. And then he sent that to me. I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
Very first Superman card.
Very first Superman card, 1940.
Was there a price at all?
He didn't tell me. No, I went on eBay and just checked it out, and they're all over the place. I think the cheapest one was like $2,500, and it went up to, 10 grand or something.
But I mean, that's essentially Superman's rookie card.
Essentially, yeah. And comic book people will say, like, I've heard different people talk about it. Like, comic book people don't. I think actually Steve was telling me that, or on his video yesterday or the other day or whatever, how like a comic book shop owner was like, yeah, but comic book people don't care about the cards and vice versa. Like, they want the comic books. So I don't know if that carries over, but still, that was a really cool card that he got.
Brett says movies are dying, no new ideas, and current generations can't watch movies with any depth, only fight scenes, explosions, and the same plot. At least, well, I mean, look, I think with the superhero movies, I mean, you did have like Joker, which was different. You know, the Joker was a pretty good movie. I liked it, but it was different. It was definitely a lot of depth for a superhero or villain type of movie. But I will say with CGI and I think with movies that they're trying to attract every demographic, kids, teens, and adults, that's a hard thing to do because kids wouldn't gravitate towards anything that they wouldn't understand. They want to see action. They want to see explosions. And I mean, I kind of want to see it as well. But I guess it's tough to make a huge movie with only one demographic, especially if you're making a superhero movie for adults and kids aren't interested, then you're missing out on all the toy sales, all the branded merchandise that the kids would want the parents to buy. So, plus there's a lot to watch on TV.
There's never been more options. It's like, you have like regular TV, all the different streaming things, and now you have goofballs like us that are on YouTube that are also drawing a little bit of attention among all the other content creators for every other thing that's out there. I mean, it's like the war for attention has never been more fierce than it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to point out a couple comments here. Haas Bonaventure, Joe Burrow, who's a better quarterback, can have his Donruss PSA 10 for 100. So Max is a little closer to 75 once he's no longer a rookie. That's a huge difference from 2,000, 3,000, or even like $500. What are your thoughts, Neo?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think when I did my comparison video, I think like a Patrick Mahomes based Donruss is like $400 or $500. So you could buy like 4 Patrick Mahomes Donruss base rookies for the price of 1 Mac Jones Donruss base.
Well, all right. So that's just silly. It's stupid that people would pay so much because it's and maybe it said pop 1, pop 3, pop 5 in the eBay listing, which, I mean, you got to be smart enough to be like, yeah, for now, even if that's accurate, it's for now. Give it a week, give it a month, give it 6 months or a year, and it's like it's going to explode. I want to ask you, from the beginning of this year to now, Neo, what have you changed or learned? Like what has been the biggest learning lesson or pivot you've made based on where everything has been?
Just in general, like market wise, or just like collecting in general, or
hey, Steve made it.
Steven said he's saying that the link didn't work that I sent him, but it didn't
for me. I used the same one.
All right, Steve, that's you, man. I sent
it's on you, man.
And it worked for Neo.
Yeah. Steve was going to be our other guest, and then apparently he's just here in the comments section. You can be our moderator though, if you want to go through and just like moderate. And
you could have just said he didn't want to come on, Steve.
I think the biggest thing for me is the more diversification.
What did you say, Rob?
To Brad's question, I think just diversifying more, trying to get away from, as we move throughout the year, getting away from base cards and stuff like that, getting into more markets, like playing in the non-sports card market, playing in the comic book market, to kind of not have all my eggs in one basket.
You know what's funny about that is I literally got an email from PSA that my latest order is ready, and I have 370 some odd cards, and they're pretty much all base cards. They're garbage. However, the one thing that was good about it is that these were all cards I got off of Beckett Marketplace, and most of them are Tom Brady's. So it might be like 2003 Topps. I'd like to say Topps Chrome Tom Brady, but I know there were a lot of Topps Chrome Tom Brady's, but all base. And then there were some other early cards that were not Topps Chrome. But at $10 or $12 to grade, and these cards were maybe $2.50 to $3 a piece, I should be fine. Yeah, I'll be fine for sure. But it's just so funny because I'm looking at the list and I'm like, oh my God, these cards are dreadful. But literally a year ago, they were legit, right? They were cards that people were buying. Things were moving. Second year Prism, Damian Lillard was like a $200 card in PSA 10. So, I think those were a couple of the ones I have as well, where I'm like, man, second year Prism base, what a stretch that is. But that's now, back then that wasn't a stretch at all. You were thinking like maybe a third year LeBron, maybe it kept going out and out.
Yeah. For from the basically from the national, from the back half of the year, I spent a lot of time trying to consolidate, like especially on the sports card side of my collection. You know, like if I had 3 Luka Optic base PSA 10s, I would move those and get into like 1 Luka Optic Hollow 9, like stuff like that. Like still have a share of the player, but have less cards, but a nicer card of the player.
Yeah, there was one comment here I saw by Dan. People getting excited about Jackie Robinson 54 tops PSA 4, then an optic variation, and yeah, that's absolutely true. The move to vintage and just cards that you know that it's safe. It is safe, like long term, versus Kyler Murray. Like I've said his name so many times, just because I bought his cards at the perfect time in the offseason, January, February. Bought at a really low price. He's had a great year overall. Cardinals are like the number 1, number 2 team in the NFL, and I'm still losing money if I were to sell. And it's like, you know, kind of crazy that's what's happening. Dustin, what's been like your biggest learning lesson this year?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. And actually, I think that Neo had put out a video either today or yesterday. I promise, Steve, I
used the same link, Steve.
Maybe did you copy and paste or what?
Yeah, I copied and pasted it right out of the IG.
All right, yeah, do that. Try that, Steve.
Yeah, try copy and paste. Control. Hey, look, it worked.
What the hell?
Yo, am I on?
Do you understand how these computers work?
Just blow in the drive. Put the floppy disk back in.
So instead of just clicking the link, I had to just actually reopen it in Samsung Internet.
In what? Samsung Internet?
Yeah, which is for my phone because I have an Android.
Oh, okay.
So the link just kept loading. So I had to go to the options.
You can download the new AOL disk?
No. This 56K here in this hotel that I'm at.
I've got Earthlink. It's the jam.
Well, Steve, welcome to the show. Have you heard the discussion for like last 27 minutes?
Yes, the last thing that I heard was you guys talking about the Mac Jones cards and stuff.
Yeah, we did discuss that. Yeah. Any thoughts there?
Well, in Philly, it was crazy. The Philly show, there was a guy who had Mac Jones, Don Russ rated rookies set up on the outside of his showcase. And if you wanted to buy them, those weren't the ones he was selling. They were just like a display. He would pull out a 100-count box, like a white box that you would keep common cards in. And it was just loaded with Mac Jones, Don Russ base paper rated rookies. And he would be like, how many do you want? And he would just penny sleeve them up. He didn't even have them penny sleeved in that box. He would just penny sleeve them up, and that's how he was selling them. So that tells me that people paying for this card right now aren't, it's just not wise.
It doesn't make sense to me because it feels like that's a lesson that's already been learned. Unless it's someone that's literally like brand new, like with a bunch of money that just walked into it and was like, oh, Mac Jones. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see how that can still happen.
Hold on. Well, I mean, you do have the occasional like diehard Patriots fan, or you have like a collector that's like, I just love Mac Jones and price isn't really an issue. And if I buy it at this price, I assume that I'll be able to sell it without much thought beyond that.
Maybe Mac Jones bought his first rookie card. It's like, that's my first card. I don't know.
In the second and the third, and then he's just going to dollar cost average it all the way down for all.
He's like, I just cornered the market on all my rookie cards.
Never underestimate the power of FOMO.
Seriously. Hey, I mean, and eBay, you know, these sites, eBay, Amazon, they make it seamless on purpose. They make it so that they have a very seamless app, and you add to cart and you buy it now, and it's something where it's just a couple clicks and it's done. And it helps as a seller because then you're like, hey, this is great. I want this to be very easy. But as a buyer, that's when it gets dangerous, especially if you're emotional. Steve, what have you been doing lately? What are you focusing on?
Well, I just got back from the Philly show, so I was able to get rid of a lot of modern basketball at the trade night. At these trade nights, at these shows, stuff is really moving. There's still people that want cards that are tough moves on the platforms. I feel like it's easier to move stuff in person. I'm redirecting into high liquidity players of pricier items. players that are going to be in demand no matter what. Neo and Dustin know that I just bought a Kobe Bryant auto today, which is my first Kobe Bryant auto. I've never messed around in the Kobe Bryant market that much, but Kobe Bryant's always going to sell. So I'm going to start looking for bigger, higher end cards of players, your Brady's, your LeBrons, your Kobe's. And it's going to be a slow start. I'm going to have to snowball it because I can't just fire away thousands and thousands of dollars at these cards like some of these bigger players in the market do. But that's kind of like the direction that I'm going to start to head a little bit.
Okay. I feel like everyone's on that same trajectory where until the active players, especially the unproven active players, their cards really drop down to a small fraction of the proven guys and the rare cards of the proven guys, then everyone's in the same boat. So any disagreement there or any other thoughts there?
It almost feels like we're like on this weird cycle. This exact same thing happened last year where people got bored of the ultra modern, and then January and February, all the GOAT prices spiked. Jordan went way up, LeBron went way up, Kobe went way up, Magic Bird went way up. All that stuff spiked because people got disenfranchised with the day-to-day of whatever the modern sports card market is. I wonder if we're heading down a similar path, but it's not gonna go. I'm not saying it's going to go anywhere near like the prices that went last February, but I'm wondering if we're going to see a little, maybe a 20%, 15, 20% bump in in the GOAT pricing over the next 3 months.
I agree with that because it's like, people remember, especially if you were in this market, you remember how it was January, February, March, and it went ballistic. So I'm sure if you're someone that's selling, you might be thinking like, well, why am I selling in December? Why don't I just wait till January, February and see if it happens again? And I mean, it can't be much worse than November, December. Maybe that's the thinking, because of the holidays and everything else. So maybe that's, and even if, like you say, Rob, if it comes up 15, 20%, well, then you move off of some things and there you go. But if it doesn't move in the first quarter at all, I think that'll be if it doesn't move, then I'm wondering what happens with prices moving off of first quarter. That'll be interesting.
Well, I mean, here's the thing that I always think is that where would prices be today if we didn't have the backlog? If we had the exact same number of cards as a year ago? Because what's hard to determine is if GemRate, and shout out to GemRate, I use their data and I think all of us refer to it. If just PSA is putting out 175 to 200,000 cards per week, even if there's more interest in the hobby, even if players are playing well, it is being offset by the amount of cards that are coming back, with the exception of the serial numbered and the super rare parallels and things like that. But I think that's where, I know I'm in trouble with a lot of my cards because even though I bought really low and I bought at the right time, and I bought cards that I knew would go up in pop count, the market didn't really grow to counteract how much the pop counts are growing.
It's kind of interesting though. If you think about your Kyler Murray Prisms, for example, that's a card that, like you said, you bought it at the right time. Like you bought it January, right at the kind of the end of the year. Arizona's out. It's kind of like we're heading into the off season, whatever. And that price hasn't really moved much, like the price point where you got it. But there's 1,800 more of them now. Yeah. So that tells you. I mean, you would assume then the demand is kind of risen. It's just that the prices haven't moved up. It hasn't gone that much further than where that population went. If you think about it, that's a hell of a lot more. It was at 700 and then it went to 2,500.
Well, it's not only that, it's because it's higher pop counts, but also I think even besides the numbers, the base cards are kind of they were the ones that no one really wanted, more than the parallels, especially the cool looking parallels, but they were actually affordable and liquid. And now more cards are liquid because I don't think nearly as many people are flipping. And actually, I'm working on a video now talking about. I'm actually putting out a video. I know it's crazy. I'm actually putting out a video soon.
Wait, you're working on a video?
I'm thinking Friday, but it's about how I don't know if online flipping, remote flipping, is even something that is a possibility now without I have to buy raw cards, get them graded 9s and 10s, and then that's the only way in a year's time to be able to flip remotely. Because besides that, if you're making 30% profit margins on the cards that are actually doing well, and then you're selling those online, how much are you really keeping? Like 15% minus taxes? You know what I mean? Like 18% max?
I'm having a hard time just thinking, like, what if you had hijacked the virtual last night? You had an opportunity where you were given you had the mic. Like, it was like, Brad, what do you think about this? You could have talked for 15 minutes straight on there until they were finally like, all right, cut him.
You like that?
What?
You
What's
could have
that?
caused a giant scene, and you blew your opportunity. I know you were thinking about it.
Yeah, there it is, Troy. Real news. I need to use the restroom, but continue the conversation. I do want to talk about football cards, though, because I know you were talking about them. And I think that's the sport that I thought was going to do really well with fantasy and with gambling. And I feel like football cards are like there's no winners in it. Is it just football, or is it all sports right now?
Well, go ahead and go to the bathroom. Yeah, I was just going to say,
I can hear you, though.
My video today was kind of dismal around football cards, but part of it, like I said, bias. I'm like, my Saints are just having a hell of a time with injuries and everything else, but it just feels like from a fantasy perspective, you've got like McCaffrey, Kamara, all these quarterbacks are out. I mean, what do you guys think? Are football cards exciting to you at this point? Or actually, is it time to get into football cards?
I mean, I've been the last 2 NFL seasons, I've said you should probably sell every football card that you own before the season actually starts. Football is the worst sport to carry cards into season on, unless you're into them, unless you're purely prospecting and you bought, some backup quarterback on the low, sure, hold that in the season. But anyone established or relevant should not be carried in the season. You should sell every card that you have, unless it's a PC player, on September 9th.
Yeah,
between injuries and everything else, it's just I said it before last season, I said it before this season. Do not carry football cards in this season.
My question, Rob, for you, because you and I both buy Baker Mayfield stuff. I'm kind of wondering, like, do I buy more Baker Mayfield stuff? And then I'm kind of like, you know what? I have like a decent amount of it, but what's your thoughts? You're a Browns fan, so that's part of that's got to be like the collector PC, like pulling at you a little bit, because pricing is, I haven't checked pricing. I assume it's down though.
Oh yeah, you can pick up Baker stuff real cheap right now. I'll be curious to see what he looks like coming off a bye week on Sunday against the Ravens. Because they've had tons of injuries and he's been banged up since about week 3. So I almost like an incomplete for this season.
Last thing I heard was Saints are horrible or dismal or something like that, which, I was nodding my head in agreement as the urine was leaving my body. But it's funny, like,
weirdo.
Like, I feel like, okay, and I heard Neo talk about don't carry football cards into the season. Injuries for sure, underperformance, complimentary players sucking, offensive line, all that. I tried to sell all mine. Unfortunately, the whole goal was to sell in July when there should have been positive movement, and there was none. In fact, that Kyler Murray Prism card peaked in March of last year at $600, which would have been roughly a 50% profit minus fees. And I thought, okay, if it's 50% now, it'll go up to 800, or worst case scenario, it's at 600 before the season. And I just waited a couple extra months. And then of course that obviously didn't happen. In terms of the seasons though, Saints are horrible. I like watching my Bucks, but it's still not as exciting because the last season was just the craziest year ever. And so this is more expected. What are you seeing, Steve? What football are you watching? What are you excited about?
I'm doing well in 2 really high dollar fantasy leagues at the casino. So I just root for my fantasy players on my teams. As far as the football card market, I didn't carry anything out of the national. I completely I didn't have a lot of football inventory. I had maybe 5 or 6 really high end items, which I had no trouble moving. The high end stuff, the flawlesses, the contenders tickets. I didn't have a hard time moving that stuff. I don't know how the base stuff was moving, like the stuff that you were talking about that you had. I remember you had some stuff at the National, like some Russell Wilsons and such. But my plan was to get out of all that stuff because football was really hot at the National. There was buyers for it. Usually when there's lots of buyers for something, I tend to get out of it because eventually those buyers are going to be fewer and far between. So you got to sell when everybody else is buying. Don't continue to just ride it out and think that stuff is going to continue to go up.
But prices weren't even that high, though. I mean, like,
Well,
who's the one guy? Justin Herbert, he was everywhere, but it's not like prices were high during summer because it's like that would have been easy to sell. I was waiting for July to sell, hoping that most people would sell a couple weeks later, like even June sell, but it just things weren't really going anywhere.
Well, maybe it depends on what kinds of cards you were holding and things like that. Like I had a nice Kyler and a nice Sam Darnold that I was able to move for a good profit. I did move my Baker. Neo got that, but that was more of a friendly deal that we had going on there. I didn't have any base prisms or anything like that, but even like Josh Allen was super high in demand there at the end of July, drawing really high money to the point to where it was impossible for any type of production that he was going to put forth on the field to sustain his prices. So I just looked at it, from that standpoint and got into basketball. And then the same thing happens in basketball. I held some of my basketball a month into the season and was just able to luckily get a lot of it out of my inventory at Philly. And stuff is moving in person. If you're doing a lot of, like I said, online transactions are slow, but at these live shows, especially on these trade nights, there's a lot of transactions taking place, high end and low end. You have entry level collectors and buyers and investors, and you have high end as well. So,
Okay.
And I was surprised, believe me, I was surprised because some of the cards that I've had listed on my slabs, I sold for more money at the trade night than I had them listed on my slabs for. So I don't know if people aren't paying attention to the platforms or what it may be. I had a Kevin Porter Jr. card, and this is one of the polarizing guys, especially for me, for basketball, listed for $100 on my slabs, and I got $125 cash for it at a table at trade night. So I was just like, this didn't make much sense.
I've had I had sales on my slabs, pretty good sales. However, the price point of the same card would always go for more on eBay, and I think that's because the casual person is on eBay, and the casual person might be at card shows because it's something to do, and they might get wrapped up in the emotion of it too. Because I mean, if you're at a card show, you want to buy something new, you want to trade for something new. It's kind of weird to go to a card show and not, even though I'm really good at it. I buy the one card I bought at the Dallas card show was the Dak Prescott I bought off of eBay that I actually consulted Steve about. And it made sense. And I actually sold that for a profit before the season. That was one of the few anomalies. But where are you selling your cards, Neo?
Same as Steve. I've been doing most of my transactions in person these days. I mean, I have a couple cards listed on my slabs. I have not been selling much on eBay at all. I personally haven't had any issues, but I just know that's going around a lot lately. I've been trying to avoid selling on eBay as much as possible and using either my slabs or I'm lucky. I have 4 shows a month that I could get to relatively easily. And then I have 2 shops. Card Collector 2 is 2 hours away from me. So when he does his trade nights, I make the trip down for that. And then I have another shop in Cleveland 101 that does a trade night about every other month. So I have a lot of access to smaller local shows and some relatively big trade nights. When Ryan rolls out a trade night, there's a ton of people there. The shop in Cleveland that's doing it, they're getting a really good following on it as well. So like Steve, I've been trying to move a lot more in person, whether sometimes it's not even selling, a lot of trading or like cards plus cash or getting a card and a little cash back, depending on what you're moving. So
I mean, okay. So here's the question I wanted to ask, because it sounds like if you go local, obviously it's going to take time, but it's also going to be fun. You're going to meet other people and you're going to be able to move with these cash transactions. Is it possible to flip cards online anymore based on the margins, based on what's happening, and based on not having $100,000 or whatever as your starting point and making like a 20% margin, or, you know, like entering with so much money that you only need a small margin? Do you think it's possible to flip primarily online? Neil, I'll ask you first.
I think you can, but it's a lot harder. It's not like before where you could literally just buy anything and it's going to go to the moon like it was before. There's still opportunities to be had out there. I think you could still prospect some, you know, like buy guys that are really cheap before, like guys that have no attention and no hype coming into the season. And you're going to miss on some, but you just need to hit on enough to make the profit. Like Cole Anthony silvers were 10 or 15 bucks a piece before the season started. Tyrese Maxey was 10 or 15 bucks. Miles Bridges was dirt cheap before the season started. All that stuff's 10x probably since the NBA season started anyways. But those guys weren't selling for a lot to begin with. However, if you bought Trey or Luka or Ja, where a lot was already baked into the prices, they don't live up to expectations and the prices pull down on that. So I think the lower end prospecting, you could still do well. You mentioned it earlier, and I think we might be heading back to, as PSA opens up more and more service levels, I think we could flip back to what it was 2 years ago, where the best way to profit was to buy clean raw cards, send them in the grade, and then sell for a profit that way. You know, that's been out of the playbook for the last year and a half, really, or last year, at least for the PSA perspective. You could do it somewhat with SGC and CSG and some of the others. So I kind of see that maybe coming back around again as a more viable option than what it was before.
For one, yeah, great perspective. And I actually agree with you on the grading, where the flipping in terms of like, I'll buy and then sell in 3 months or 6 months, that would be very good prospecting, but really unlikely and like a bit of luck. But the flipping online could be more of that, let me stock up on raw cards, wait for the $20 per card tier, and then this will be a year out. And so now you start the cycle by collecting a lot of the raw cards now, saving them for later. When the tier opens up, you send them in, and instead of it just being 3 flips, 3 cycles per year, it's, you know, you start now and there's like an 8-month or year delay, but then you make your first chunk, and during the meantime, you're buying and grading cards, and it's just a longer process. Real quick, Troy, thank you so much. I'm glad that your lost bets on the time it took for me to have to use the restroom resulted in me getting $5 Canadian. That is awesome. I will take it. I need to monetize that more somehow. Steve, what about you, man? You think you can flip online, or is it just is that pretty much done with?
Well, like Neo said, especially with the basketball market, there was a lot of baked in goodness on a lot of players that had expectations already in their cards. And the way that you made money was if you were holding players that have exceeded, you know, what people thought that they were going to do. And he named a couple of those players. Again, so it's like the prospecting market, but prospecting is always hit or miss. You hope to go 2 of 5 on your prospects. That'll normally get you a win. When you're talking about the platforms, you know, realistically going into a card and looking at the end game for a card and what you're trying to profit on a card, you know, right now where the market sits at a fair market, I call it a fair market, I call it a realistic market, and you should realistically expect maybe a 25 to 30% return on your card. Now, when you're selling on a platform like an eBay with a PayPal attached to it, and you're, you know, well, they don't even use PayPal, but they still hit you with a 14% total fee. There goes half of your profit margin just in fees. If you're looking for a 30% return, 14% of that is going to the platform. Now, there's MySlabs, which is great. I love MySlabs. It has less eyes on it. That's the one downfall. But that's why I talk about it a lot, to try to get more people to look at it. However, a lot of the people that do use MySlabs are the same people like Neo, myself, that flip, and they're going to MySlabs to look for deals. So even though you feel like you have a card up there that's priced very fair, especially for somebody who wants to buy it and hold it, a lot of the people buying on MySlabs aren't buy and hold type buyers. They're flippers looking for a deal to reflip. So again, that's why a lot of times cards will sit on MySlabs, even though you're priced below eBay comps, because the person wanting to buy it is somebody that's looking to resell it. And it doesn't make sense to them because they're still not going to get a profit margin. on a MySlabs or on an eBay platform. And again, selling in person, I believe a lot of it had to do, and I was completely wrong about the Philly show. My expectations going into the Philly show, I talked about this on a live stream. I didn't think stuff was going to be selling. I didn't think any of the stuff, I wasn't going in there saying I got all kinds of great cards, everybody's going to want to buy them. But the thing was that people were buying cash. I was able to give better deals because there was no fees, there was no shipping. Because on MySlabs, you do foot the shipping bill, so you got to take that into account. It's not just MySlabs getting their 1%, PayPal getting their 4%. You're also footing that $3 or $4 shipping bill. So, and also you get people, if somebody's got a card in hand, they're more likely to buy it. And because a lot of times when somebody wants to buy something off of a platform, they look at it, they add it to their tracking list or their watch list, and then they sleep on it. And then the next day they're like, oh, I didn't really want that. And they remove it. You have more impulse buy when you're in person and somebody's actually got that card in their hand. Instead of thinking about buying it and waiting till the next day, they buy it right there within that they got 3-5 minutes to make the decision. They buy it, the transaction's done and over with. There's no fees, the card's in hand, the cash is in hand. So again, shows for me, and I don't get to go to many, that's the unfortunate thing. I was really able to capitalize in Philly and I was lucky. This wasn't just me having the right items. I was just lucky that people were interested in some of the stuff that I had. But I just feel like when people talk about the hobby slowing down, the hobby's dying, it's tanking, people are taking baths on everything. I think this is the people that strictly deal in a lot of online transactions, and they're not actually getting out and feeling the vibes and everything that's going on at a live event.
Are you getting a lot of at the live shows? Are people sticking to eBay comps when you're out there, or are they a little bit more flexible? How is that going?
As a buyer or as a seller?
If you're trying to sell stuff, so
if I'm trying to sell.
Yeah, if you're trying to move stuff, or are they more
usually you pull up like
you're trying to trade, for something.
Usually pull up like an alt pulls all of the comps from all kinds of different platforms together, as opposed to strictly eBay. Now you got to remember, especially myself, if I'm selling to someone that I know is looking to sell this on the other side, I have to leave them room to sell it as well. Now, am I going to sell this to somebody at a dealer comp where a dealer is expecting to give you 70% for your card? No, that wouldn't make sense. I could go to MySlabs and get 80%, even if I undercut myself. But if I'm selling to somebody else that I think is trying to move the card, I do got to leave them a little bit of room on the other end. And a lot of times what dictates your profit margin is your entry point price. If you got in at the stuff late or really high, you're probably selling and trying to cut your losses. If you got in on the stuff fairly cheap, then you still have room to make profits, even though you're not making the type of profits you would have made if you would have sold before now.
I was thinking of going to, because I'm going to Raleigh show this weekend, and you've been there, Steve. But what I was thinking of is I'll bring some stuff that I'm kind of like, blah, don't really, it's not really doing a whole lot for me. Maybe find a table where they've got like some of the auto stuff that we like or whatever, and then see, because the other thing is maybe I can get some favorable trade if depending on what they're in on a card for. So like, if it's, I don't know, 250 for 250, but they got the card for 100, maybe they'll work with me a little bit if they got in on that card, 3 years ago or something. I don't know.
I got the best idea. We all split a table at the Mint Collective. We have a picture, an 8x10 glossy, all four of us. We autograph it. People pay retail price for the cards, but they get a free autographed glossy 8x10 of all four of us. We use our combined 30,000 followers on YouTube as leverage to get the most amount of money on our cards. How about that, guys?
Actually, that would be a hilarious parody exhibit booth. We should do something like that because people would be like, "What the hell?" It would get attention.
Yeah, parody.
Yeah.
Well, Dustin, to your question, if you sell in person to someone a little bit below eBay comps, the stuff will move. If you're looking to get full comp, a lot of times people, unless you're selling PC items, I just had silver and hollows. I don't think silvers and hollows, they're the cards that are liquid, but I don't think they're the cards that are being PC'd. I think they're the cards that people are still prospecting on. You know, people are buying Donovan Mitchell because they think the Jazz are going to go deep into the playoffs and he might get a boost in the playoffs. You still have people that think and buy like that. Not as many, but you still have people who think and buy like that. But their thought is, if that happens, I got to have room to make money on this card. So when you're looking at an eBay comp, you do got to come off the eBay comp a little bit, but not to the point to where you would be on, say, an eBay fee or something like that.
I think the ultimate weapon is the trade nights. People are much more willing and easier to work with at the trade nights than a dealer versus a show goer, which isn't easy. Not every show has a trade night. Not every local card shop is running trade nights. But if you can get into a trade night, I mean, we were at the National together. The trade nights were better than the show in a lot of cases in terms of moving cards and just being able to make deals, because it's just like me and Steve working on a deal together. Okay, what's the comp on this? What's the comp on that? Cool. Okay, does this seem fair? Yeah, great, cool, done deal. It's much easier to pull off deals at the trade nights, I think, like fair and equitable deals for both parties than on a show floor or online for that matter.
The people walking around the trade nights, they don't have overhead. So, you know what I mean? When you're selling to a dealer, they have overhead and fees. They have to resell it. And people who are coming up to their booth are coming up to buy a card off of them below comps. You know, they're not going to come up to, if a card is worth $300 and it's stickered at $350, somebody's going to turn away from it. If it's stickered at comps, people are going to look at it, but they're still going to want room to negotiate. Everybody likes to feel like they're winning when they're buying a card. Ultimately, if the seller and the buyer can walk away feeling like a winner, that's the way the business is supposed to go. So when you're selling to the dealers at the tables, they have overhead and they have to have room to discount the card off of a comp in order to sell. So I understand when they want to buy it like a 70%. But when you're in a trade night, it's an even playing field where you're not a dealer. You're just like me. So we're going to go off comps. And this is the way, you know, we're going to do our business.
Great point. There was another idea I had that I wonder if this could actually work, because look, we had the National, we had Industry Summit, we have these card shows that are becoming more and more popular and making more sense for everyone. So as they get bigger, or at least like maybe there's a lot of small shows, but then they merge together and there's a couple solid shows every month per city or once a month per city, especially the big ones are like Dallas and the National. What about a business, like a service that literally will go in person and buy certain cards for you, kind of like a reverse consigner? Or if I can't make it to the National, but I have all these cards to sell, a service that'll kind of represent you at a show. And maybe this would be $3,000 cards on up, but if shows are the way to go based on all these factors, is that like a crazy business idea? Like a consigner, like a service that'll literally be like, okay, what are the cards you're looking for? What's your price point? They get paid.
Well, yeah, I think that's what a lot of the big money does. I think that, you know,
I was thinking like Gary V.
Gary V's got guys that do that for him. You know, I mean, he doesn't go to all the shows and buy cards. He has his people that do that for him.
But also for selling though, like, because what if I say, look, I can't make it to the LA card show, like the local one, but there are people here, and I'm like, look, can you just consign my cards at the LA show or at the next Dallas show or something like that? I don't know if it's just too much logistics, or it needs to be over $2,000 or over $1,000 or something. But hey, you know, with every challenge, like taxes, which AP mentioned, you know, there's going to be taxes being taken out, I think over $600, right? Is it $600 next year? It's going to be reported, and fees. Maybe that opens the door for another business, for someone to say, hey, you know what? With me, I'm going to go to the National and let me sell your cards. I don't have that much to sell, but I'll take cards that are $1,500 or more, and you let me know the price, and I'll sell it, and then I'll charge 3%, 5%, something where it's still worthwhile for both parties. I don't know if it's just too messy. Maybe it's just too messy, or it's only worth it for really high-end cards, but just an idea.
Yeah, the trade nights were really clutch at the National. When you think about like how much the exhibitors paid to be at the National, their overhead to go there. And then you had all the mini dealers. And even what's funny is even the dealers that had booths at the National, that had tables were still at the trade nights trying to make deals, because they were having more success probably at the trade nights, because people were just, doing more of the trade night stuff. But yeah, I think that's a good point that was made, is just they don't have the same sorts of overhead. And we're all kind of mini dealers in a way, but I didn't spend 10 grand to get there and set up and all that.
Yeah, I mean, at the Lowe's Hotel on Saturday night, Steve and I literally split a table in the middle of the hotel conference area in the back. I think you walked past us, Brad, when you were on your phone doing like a little live stream thing. From that, yeah. Steve and I had a table in the corner that we were set up at. Dustin stopped by. Like, we were basically dealers with zero overhead, other than the table I stole from the.
Well, the best was when they kicked everybody out from the front of the lobby or whatever, and then everyone ran back to the back and grabbed tables out of the closets. That was a time, man. I don't think that anyone. I wonder if every national is going to be like that. I hope so, because that was unreal. It was so
what? Go on, Steven. Or you want to say
no,
something?
I was going to say, I heard from the last show that they just did in Chicago. What was it? The Sports Spectacular or something? I'm not sure what the name of the show was, but there was a pretty decent sized show in Chicago recently. I heard they tried to do the same thing at the Lowe's Hotel with the trade night this time, and they actually had the Chicago police come and kick people out of the lobby.
Oh no.
They were like prepared for it.
Here's the one thing I got to say about card shows, like the National. It was overwhelming. If you're looking for something specific, you are looking for a diamond in a haystack, or a needle in a haystack. I'm like, diamond in a haystack doesn't sound right. Needle in a haystack, diamond in the rough. And the one thing I could say, like, if you're going to do the Dallas card show, if you're going to have these bigger regional shows, even trade nights, this would help so much. You have the people that are going to attend all list the cards that they want to publicly show that they're bringing. And then at least okay, I'll be in this table, I'll be at this section, or I'll be here for trade night. Here are the cards. And I mean, like, look, I understand some people might be hesitant to list their high-end cards that they're bringing publicly, but I mean, you're going to be there with them anyway. So I would just love a database knowing that, okay, when I go to a show, this is the person that has a lot of Kobe's. This, like, you just put a couple of cards that are unique or that you have a lot of or something, to make it simpler. Because I mean, like, I like organization, I like structure. So just to go there, it's such a scavenger hunt, which is part of the fun. But if you're looking for something specific in a show that big, I think it's overwhelming and stressful.
It was kind of funny at the Philly show, at the trade night. I had taken a lot of my Larry Bird and Magic Johnson autos with me. I had them all in mags, one touches and pro molds. Somehow or another, somebody had heard about that, because I was approached at the trade night and someone said, I'm looking for some Larry Bird and Magic Johnsons, and I heard you're the person that I need to talk to. And I have no idea where they got that tidbit of information from or anything, but I was carrying about 20 total between the two players, autos and mem cards of those two players. And I was just like, man, how did you know this? And apparently, I guess there's a booth in Philly, Santiago Sports had set up. And I did a deal with Santiago earlier in the day. And then someone came up to his booth looking for some Larry Bird autos. And I guess it got spread like that.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
You're the guy to go to.
No, not because those Bird and Magics are like mine. I just like to try to trade up on those into better Bird and Magics.
Yeah, those are cool, though. Those are cool.
Let me ask you something, Steve, because a couple of weeks ago, Dustin and I had our 5 worst investments video, and I want to know, you and Neo, what your worst investments are, because both of you guys are really smart. You use analytics, you understand where the market's at, but none of us are perfect. We all are like adapting to this changing market, and we're trying to do what makes sense. But Steve, let's start with you. Like, what are 1 or 2 of your worst investments, and what's the learning lesson behind it?
One of them was when I was prospecting last year, and it was Kobe White. I missed on Kobe White. Not with big money, because the cards weren't expensive, but the thing I learned from that was I should have sold him while he was hot, because I was buying his base Prism rookies, which are flooded in the pop report now. When they were like $80, that card hit like $200, and now it's like $20. So I'm like, I should have just took my profit margins when I could have. A bigger, higher price card was the Anthony Davis 2012 Prism. which I had bought for close to $2,000, maybe $2,100 actually, a little bit over 2,000. I moved out of that card in Dallas for $1,600. I just saw that card in a downward spiral, so I cut ties with that card at around a $500 loss. But that card ended up going below $800. So I looked at that as a win. You know, sometimes cutting your losses at the right time is just as big a win as taking your profits at the right time. But that is 2 players / 2 cards that I lost money on. Also, coming into this season, one that I missed on, and I don't think I've missed on him long term. I'm just in a holding pattern now. It's Colin Sexton because he got hurt. I bought 4 nice cards of his, including an immaculate RPA. However, at the Philly trade night, I was able to get out from under that immaculate RPA and completely break even. I paid $400 for that card at the Raleigh, North Carolina show when I was with Dustin, and I sold that card for $400 at the Philly trade night just because I wanted to get out from underneath that card. And I have 3 other decent cards of his. So that's 3 players right there, you know. But my profits on Tyler Hero alone has outweighed the losses on those 3 players. So like I said, usually if you can hit on 2 out of 5, you usually do well enough for yourself.
Yeah, very nice. I mean, if you can hit a grand slam on 1 or 2, and then you just have minor losses or decent losses, but nothing serious, then it all works out. It's like investing, like angel investing in a bunch of startups. You just need one to go to, you know, IPO and make, you know, 50x your investment, and then all the 30 others you invest in can just, you know, go down the drain and it'd be okay. Neo, what about you? What are some of your worst investments?
My worst one of the year, hopefully. I actually just did a video on this last week. Lucas Select Premier PSA 10 base that I bought in April when the market was still not at its peak, but still pretty high, that I paid $1,200 for, that I just sold for $500 about a week or 2 ago. I took a decent hit on a Deshaun Watson Silver Prism PSA 10 that I bought on Star Stock, and then literally 16 hours later, the news came out about him going to massage parlors.
Ooh, you bought at the peak. Like that was like the trade rumor peak, right? Right before?
It had dipped off of the initial trade rumors and then started going back up on the next wave of trade rumors. So I bought, and then the next day that came out. Now I sold it immediately. I took an immediate, I think I lost $300 in like 24 hours on that card. But to Steve's point, and I think this is a hole in a lot of people's game, is they want to hold for the win. They don't want to take the loss on the card. And I really think 9 times out of 10, you're better off just taking the loss and moving on. Because how many times do you guys hear walking around a show or whatever, like, oh man, I should have just sold that a month ago and taken the small hit. Now I'm going to take a huge hit. And, you know, I sold that card for $650, lost $300 on it. This was all on Star Stock, but I immediately took that $650 and bought 3 Ronald Acuna Juniors for $200 a piece, and each one of those went to $600 a piece because that was right before he got really hot. So I got lucky, but I would have never got into those Acunas if I wouldn't have sold the Watson. So by taking the loss on the Watson, I took the win on the Acuna. So
there you go.
You know, and the other one that really hurt me this year was I bought Donovan Mitchell at the same time in that like April, May, and it was the same situation. I bought a lot of Donovan Mitchell, a base Prism PSA 10, 2 optic PSA 10s. The day they came in the mail is the day that he turned his ankle and was out for like 4 to 6 weeks before the season ended.
What's the learning lesson is to move on when and take your losses. Similar to Steve, take your loss. Honestly, something I still haven't learned because like I don't know. I mean, on the unproven guys, it's kind of like Jared Stidham, just get out of my sight because I don't even want to look at your cards. However, guys like Russell Wilson, who's had a disastrous year, Patrick Mahomes, whose cards have dropped overall, but you know, you still think, well, long term, like, does it make sense to really sell at a loss? Maybe I could sell and recoup somewhere, but maybe it doesn't. But I will say, as much as I like to think my ego is not involved, I hate losing, and sometimes my ego is like, no, just give it more time. Jared Stidham will make the most epic comeback ever, and there's like a fraction of a single percent that is the case. But you know, my ego's like, I can't be wrong. I'll take it to my grave. there's got to be a way to like repurpose cards into daily things, like a coaster or something else. Where you use, like,
coasters.
Is there
Door
anything
stops.
else? Is there anything else though? Like, is there
Door
anything?
stops.
I know, but is there
Well,
anything
yeah,
besides dead
with
weight?
all these slabs coming back from PSA, I think there's going to be a lot more of that type of stuff. It's going to be like junk slab type, art or whatever, furniture. There's going to be furniture made out of slabs.
Yeah, instead of the Iron Throne, it'll be the PSA slab throne.
Hey, might as well. We might as well turn it into something. I prefer Downey, to be honest, Brian, but if you want, that works as well. But I was thinking, because I remember a long time ago, someone said, what should I do with all of these junk wax Michael Jordan cards? And it's all like 1994, I don't know, collector's choice. I don't know, something in horrible shape. And I go, man, that would be a really cool piece of art if you turn that into a coffee table and put a piece of glass over it. Maybe people will do that with slabs, where it's like a whole wall or a whole, like, what's it called? Like when they do that artwork where it's like a picture of someone's face, but every little square is made up of a picture of them, but it's, some are darker, some are lighter, and it just turns into that. Whatever that is, do that with slabs.
Well, and then 30 years from now, there will be videos of people like all of a sudden it'll like come back around and all that stuff will be valuable again. And there'll be videos of people like breaking their coffee table to get the cards out of it, or the desk that they built out of slabs. I'm going to be there for it.
There you go. Michael Ham has the right idea. Donate them at cost and write them off as a loss. Yeah, there you go. That's clever.
I want to circle back to something really quick on the losses thing. To your point, Brad, about like the ego thing gets in the way and all that stuff. Sometimes you just got to sit there. Like, so what I did on the Watson was as simple as, I bought it at $950. It immediately went to $650 in 24 hours. You got to sit down and just do the math on that and be like, what is it going to take for this card to get back to an even to win? And in a case like Watson, it was, okay, he's probably going to miss the season. No one's going to want to trade for him. So now I'm holding this card until, what's my best case scenario? May 2022, like NFL draft 2022. So do I really want to sit on that money for an entire year to hope that it gets back to $950? Or are you better off just to take whatever the current market rate is and then take that and make the next play versus just having the dead money tied up in that asset? And I think a lot of people get hung up on that because they just don't want to eat the loss, which I get. It's a big mental block. And I sat down and I thought about it for like an hour, and I'm like, do I want to do this or not? And then I was like, I would just rather have the $650 than just waiting around on Watson.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because I bought a lot of Deshaun Watson after the news was out, and my play was it's not going to be as serious as it's made out to be. And I mean, some people were like, he would never play another down. He'll be kicked out of the NFL, never return. And I kept thinking, like, that's pretty extreme for something that, when you're a star quarterback in the NFL and teams would do anything to win, sometimes you could just get a fresh start. You're not a running back. You're not someone that is easily replaceable. And so, to my knowledge, I think he could play right now. I don't know if he could. Could he play right now if the Texans wanted to, or is there like another process?
I think he could. I just don't know that any team wants to put him on the field.
I thought the Dolphins did, just not for 3 first-round picks. So if they
his contract's a problem.
Yeah, everyone that wanted to trade for him wanted specific stipulations of like variable picks depending on what the legal outcomes were.
Which is totally reasonable.
No one wanted to do that. So I just don't see sure, there's a decent chance he's back on the NFL field again, but then what's the chances that he's back off the NFL field again? Or there is a percentage chance that he might legitimately never play another down again. Like that's an outcome on the flow chart. That could happen.
He also had a no trade clause. So he was going to have to accept the team that they were going to trade him to. So even if there was a lot of lower end teams that were willing to give up a lot of capital to get him, those deals would have fallen through just on the fact that he wasn't going to go to certain teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that just like the hype around him being traded before the news came out about massage parlors, I thought just the rumor about the Miami Dolphins are interested, they're willing, there's talks would be enough just to put the cards up 30% more than that really low price after the news hit. Now I'm like, look, I'm just waiting for the speculation, the rumor. I don't need it to actually be finalized. I'd rather just sell as soon as it hits that price, but it never happened. So yeah, we'll see about that. But anyway, guys, pleasure having you on. Final words, Neil. What do you got going on the rest of the year? What are you focusing on? And obviously, we got to support you here on YouTube, and you're on Instagram as well, correct?
Yeah, Neo Cards and Comics is the easiest way to find me on pretty much any social media platform. I do nearly, unlike Dustin, we crank out the daily content. We copy videos off each other all the time. It's fun stuff.
I'm like, are you putting it out now? Are you putting it out now? All right, I'm hitting it. I'm putting it out.
Yeah, we were minutes apart on the I forget which one last week or whatever. But yeah, mostly sports card content with probably 20% comic book / Marvel card content mixed in a little bit. I've been trying to think like the rest of this year, it'll probably be a little like reflection back on, best wins, best losses, hits, misses, things that I'm looking forward to next year. I'm starting to try to figure out what I want to do for like wrap up content for the end of the year.
How original, aren't we all?
Yes.
I will ask you one more question then. I want to ask Steve the same thing. For next year, make one bold prediction, one big wish, something that you'd love to see in the hobby next year.
My wish would be that Fanatics gets the licenses as soon as possible from Panini and Topps and gets control of the print to the moon that's going on right now on the current sets.
You think there's any chance it happens?
I think it could happen maybe by the end of next year.
Interesting.
I think they're seeing what's going on, and they probably want to get their hands in there before Panini and Topps completely kill it with overprinting.
That'd be cool.
It's in their best interest too. You know what I mean? If Panini and Topps continue to print like the way that they are, it has a better chance of killing the hobby over the next few years before Fanatics takes over. And I know maybe grass isn't always greener on the other side, and a lot of people are scared of the Fanatics thing. But I just feel like Topps and Panini could do more harm in the short term than Fanatics coming in. Maybe I'll eat those words in 5 years. Who knows? But I'm willing to roll those dice.
Well, when you know that you have an end date, whether it's like you put your 2 weeks notice in at your job or something else, you're kind of like, hey, I got 2 weeks left of school. I got 2 weeks left of this job. Let me just kind of milk it for what it's worth. And not saying that Topps and Panini are doing that, but that is a mindset where you could easily have. Steve, what about you?
One wish. Okay, so I would like to see a set produce, a high-end set produce, and I don't care who does it, a pop culture set. I would like to see something with actors and actresses, musicians, just pop culture icons, Americana. I would like to really see a nice set like that because, I collect and chase the older stuff, but I would like to see a high-end set come out with autos and parallels and, mem cards and things like that. I would love to see a set like that in the hobby.
I don't know if you were on. Were you on when we were talking about celebrity cards, or was that too early?
That must have been too early.
You're trying to figure out how the internet works.
Yeah. Is this it? Is this the button? Power? Power? Hey, I see you. Dude, well, we talked a bit about celebrity cards. I would love to see that as well. I'd love, whether Leaf can do more with it, or it just needs to gain more popularity, or it's just like a lot of licensing and copywriting. Man, the amount of actors, musicians that I would love to collect versus majority of athletes that are just going to be disappointments in 2 or 3 years is ridiculous. And I get a lot of inspiration from the cards that you find that I didn't even know exist. Like a lot of those, the Snoop Dogg card, like the Who and all these bands where I'm like, man, if there's a Foo Fighters card, if there's a Nirvana card, if there's...
Oh, there is. I have the Nirvana.
That's
there's a Dave Grohl solo card.
It's Dave Grohl's what?
There's a Dave Grohl solo card in the 90s. Yeah.
See, that stuff is cool, yet I would have no idea it even exists. And I think there's a lot of room in the hobby for these pop culture stars, whether they're personalities like Joe Rogan or Logan Paul, Jake Paul, people where it's like we know them, we follow them, maybe on social media, maybe in their events, their music, their movies, but we can't really collect in the same way we could collect Kobe Whites or like a lot of these athletes that
Mhm.
will probably not pan out.
I mean, I just look and I can imagine like buying a box of, say, National Treasures that's nothing but celebrities. You just open it and you're hoping to pull an auto or a mem card of like an Oscar winner or something like somebody you really like. To me, that just sounds exciting.
Dude, how awesome would it, like I mentioned earlier, Step Brothers card with a piece of the sweater or a piece of like the Chewbacca mask at the end, autographed by Will Ferrell. Like you would tell me that you'd rather have a lot of these athletes cards more than that. That's like an iconic movie of an amazing actor. Like at least I'm in the same boat as you.
That is something that Luber discussed on the Sports Card Nonsense podcast that he was on, specifically that he thinks that that's an untapped market. So maybe we could see that when Fanatics comes into the space.
I just bought a Burt Reynolds mem card. It's a shirt with stripes that he wore in Evening Shade. Now, I wish it was from a big movie, but it was worn from Evening Shade. It says on the back, it's autographed on the front. It's numbered out of 25, and it's made by Don Russ Americana, so it's made by a legit set. And I picked that up for $60. So I was like, this is an amazing card for that price.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of Adam Sandler and Waterboy or Happy Gilmore, Matthew McConaughey, like Matthew McConaughey rookie card, Dazed and Confused. How cool would that be? I don't know. I mean, I can go on and on. Dark Knight, piece of anything really. The Batman outfit would be ideal, but anything, Christian Bale or what's it called? What's that movie? American Psycho card autographed with a piece of the suit. That would be sick. Sorry, Justin, no more time for you. We got to wrap it up. I'm just
Who's
kidding.
Justin?
Dustin. Wait, oh, that's right. I forgot your name. It's been so long. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Steve. Dustin, what about you? What's something for 2022?
I would like to see PSA, BGS, and CSG all get caught up grading, because I think that that's kind of a piece of the puzzle that's really missing right now when we talk about just like the market and how it is and how it's changed and blah, blah, blah. It's like a market that's, we talked about it before, it's handcuffed. You know, it's like it's not operating at full strength, not even close, really, not even close to where it can be. And so I'm, hopefully that happens next year. It might be the following, but at some point it'll happen. And so I kind of agree with the whole, like, the hobbies, struggling, there's not demand or whatever. You can't say that until all the grading companies are operating at full tilt. And then, look, if they're grading cards and no one's interested and all that, and we're back down to $20 submissions and nobody cares, then I'll believe that nobody cares about cards.
There you go. All right, we'll end it with that. Guys, thanks so much for joining. Bathroom break number 2 is minutes away from me, and that's why I really need to cut it right now. But
when's your doctor's appointment to get that looked at?
I think I held my bladder too much as a kid because I was afraid to use the restroom. And then so now it's just it's hurting me. It's taking me every 45 minutes I got to go. But my kidneys are good. I drink a lot of water.
Think about when you're 60. That's gonna be rough, man.
Anyway, I'm gonna have a bag next to me. Anyway, all right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Neo, Steve, Dustin, thanks for coming on and making this fun. I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Maybe I'll even put out a video. We'll see.
See you guys.
All right, see ya.